Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Joe Davis, Southern New Hampshire University. Milestone 2, which is in module or week 4. Today, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to go through the rubric and the guidelines for this assignment. I want to make sure everyone's clear because it's really important. It's about your career. So we're going to do that. We're going to look at Section 2, Technology, which refers to the critical elements, what you need to write about. We're going to pay very special attention to Section D, the last one there, the court case. And then I've also provided a supplemental reading for you that I think will really help with the interpretation of the cases. And if not, let me know and I'll get rid of it. And then finally, we'll go through the rubric. So those are the things that we're going to cover today. Okay, here's Milestone 2, Guidelines and Rubric, as you're familiar with. Criminals are constantly changing their victims. Changes in technology have allowed criminals to access victims they never would have been able to access before. I think you get the feel for that, okay? If we come down here to this part where it says read the following scenarios and answer each prompt, remember, you may complete your project as either a Word document or a presentation. If you select a presentation, it should be 2 or 3 slides, and your narrative has to be in the instructor notes, okay? If you select a Word document, it should be a page or 2, just depending how much you feel like you need to say. Oops, too far. If we come down here and look at technology, as technology evolves, criminal justice organizations need to be on the cutting edge. In this part of the career investigation, because that's what you're doing, don't forget, you're pointing to your career. You'll need to think about the use of emerging technology in some scenarios involving criminal justice branches to see which best utilizes technology that interests you. Now, what you should have completed ahead of time, at least scanned through, are the 2 reading articles. The first one is actually a little dated. It refers to 2004. It was published in 2008. What I would encourage you to do when you look at the technologies that are listed there, think about them today. It's almost 10 years ago. And now where are they? Do we use them every day? Did they never pan out? Those kinds of things. The second article is actually much shorter and has links to current technology studies, evaluations of technologies through the National Criminal Justice Research Service. That one's got to be of really great use to you. All right, so when we take a look here, you're a police officer assigned to conduct a burglary investigation. He describes the scene and says they found blood drops, a hammer, shoe prints, and a handprint. What types of technologies are available for him, and how does the technology impact his ability to conduct a thorough investigation? Okay, so what's available is to collect those blood drops, of course, and do analysis of it, DNA analysis. Of course, check to see if it's human or not. The hammer, we can do the same thing. We can look for DNA, we can maybe look for fingerprints. We don't know what kind of hammer it is. Shoe prints, we can take a casting, or with today's high-tech digital photography, we can get away with that maybe. And the same thing for a handprint. We're going to lift that fingerprint dust and use giant Scotch tape, for want of a better term, and lift that fingerprint, okay? It could also be done perhaps with a camera and entered directly into a digital database. So that gives you some idea. Okay, a prisoner guard is working the visitor's entrance in the prison. What type of technology is available, and how does the technology impact ability to prevent visitors from bringing in contraband? Remember, contraband is anything that's not allowed. So it could be a cell phone, it could be a narcotics, of course, something like that. Cigarettes, all kinds of things like that. It's not necessarily a crime to have it standing in the lobby, but it would be a crime for an inmate to possess it inside, and a crime for you to bring it into the prison. So think about that for a second. Maybe you go to that second article and you look, and perhaps it's a low tech. It could be a dope sniffing dog, but it could also be some type of a medical detector. It could be some type of an electronic detector. It could be a scanning device. Why can't I think of a magnetometer? That's what I was trying to think of. Like when you go through the airport. So those are the things you would want to write about. And again, if that stuff interests you, then maybe you're interested in working in corrections. All right, we come down here to a probation officer. Been told that due to overcrowding in the state prison, nonviolent offenders will be released and put on probation. What types of technology are available to her, and how does the technology impact her ability to maintain contacts with probationers? Very real here in California. Thousands and thousands, tens of thousands inmates released from state prisons, sent back to county jail, or released on probation. So well, the obvious would be some kind of an ankle bracelet or a tracking device, a GPS type system. Okay, could be tracking of telephone, cell phone, home phone, who knows? That's what you need to take a look at. Does that stuff interest you? All right, here's, as you can see, where it says Milestone 2, Supplemental Reading, Critical Element D, the court cases. The first article, as I talked about in the readings, and the second article, that's that first paragraph. In blue, what I've highlighted for you is to remind you what the assignment is. Select a court case where the use of technology was a driving factor and discuss the impact the case had on reshaping the role of the law enforcement practitioner. Okay, so we're talking about the technology here. The case decision is part of it, but it's not a discussion of the Fourth Amendment per se. That was last week's. All right, so you want to pay attention to it. Now, when you look at the actual assignment, select one case where the use of technology was a driving force. That's the same as the critical element. Okay, so now for this first one, the first case, United States versus Jones, here's another link, and I've cut and pasted it so that I think you'll find this a little easier to read and follow than just the true case summary that was, I believe, in Justia. All right, the respondent Jones is an owner-operator of a nightclub. Everybody thinks he's dealing dope, and so the investigators go and get a warrant, okay, and put a tracking device on the car, on his wife's car, which Jones is the sole driver, okay? But they're one day late installing it, but they do track him and find 2,000 pages of data over a 28-day period. Okay, that's the technology. That's the question, really. Okay, and so procedurally, the district court granted Jones's pretrial motion to suppress in part. Now, remember, suppress means the prosecution has all this evidence, 2,000 pages. Okay, the defendant, the suspect, says, "Wait a minute, we want to suppress this." And so what was suppressed was only suppressing the data obtained while the vehicle was parked in the Joneses' home garage. And then it goes on to say that if you read the full case, that there's an expectation of privacy there. If you're out on a public street, there isn't. Okay? A hung jury led to a second trial, resulted in a guilty verdict. The district court reversed the conviction, holding the admission of evidence obtained by a warrantless use of the GPS violated the Fourth Amendment. Okay? So in other words, it was a search, and it was a warrantless search when there should have been a warrant. Okay, so the issue is, does the attachment of a GPS tracking device to a vehicle and subsequent use of that device to monitor the vehicle's movement public streets constitute a search? And yes, it does. It is a search. And then here's their reasoning of it. Okay, that's in pretty clear, simple, hopefully understandable language for you. Okay, now when we take a look at the second case, excuse me. And by the way, if you feel comfortable on this, you don't have to listen to me recite all about these cases, because what I'm going to do now, because I found I couldn't find a good condensed version, I did script out some information so I don't miss it on Kylo versus the United States. Okay, and the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that thermal imaging of Kylo's home constituted a search. They think Kylo's dealing dope. They bring down a thermal imaging device technology, stand out on the public streets, scan his garage, his home. They have warmth on a couple of sides of it, therefore think they have a marijuana grow. They go and get a search warrant from a judge, come out and search. And so the question is, since the police didn't have a warrant when they used the device that's not commonly available to the public, the search was presumptively unreasonable and therefore unconstitutional. Okay, the majority opinion argued that a person has an expectation of privacy in his home, and therefore the government cannot conduct unreasonable searches, even with technology that does not enter the home. Justice Scalia also discussed how future technology can invade. So you can go through this and get a feel for it, but our issue is technology. And so down here, even on the supplemental reading, it says there's what was held, all right, and here's the reasoning, the rationale behind it. Okay, hope that guides you a little bit to the type of thing you ought to be looking for. All right, let's take a look down here at the third case. This is the way in the bullet points. This is the way it comes out in the web link, the citation. All right, and so the criminal defendant White in this case is convicted of being a drug dealer without a warrant or a court order. The police put a wire on an informant and send him in. This is a fairly old case, 1971, and I think somewhere in here it says 66 is when 65, 66 is when they actually did the wiretap. Anyway, so they also hit a police officer in the informant's house to listen to the conversations directly. So you can see where White makes a motion on the grounds that the recordings constitute a violation of his Fourth Amendment right to privacy. White certainly believed that he was having a private conversation. The informant did not testify at trial. They couldn't find their informant. Okay, so you can see what the issues are, but we want to look at it from the standpoint of technology. All right, and how did that impact then narcotics officers, other investigations, and today where we are, probably more homeland security and terrorism investigations. Okay, I went through that quickly so as to try not make it too boring for you, but I will include this PowerPoint, and I'll also include the little supplemental reading that you just saw. Okay, here we are at the actual rubric, and please make sure you take a moment as you're working on your paper. In a perfect world, I would ask that you outline your paper before you write it, but I understand that doesn't always happen. Here are the critical elements, and this is what you'll be graded on. Each one is worth 17% of your grade. So the technology for a police officer, describe the types of technology available. I'm sorry, we should move over here to proficient. Describes the technology that's available to the police officer and how they impact his ability to conduct a thorough investigation. The prison guard, the types of technology, impact ability to prevent visitors from smuggling contraband. The probation officer, describe the technology, how they can impact the ability to maintain contact. And here is the court case. And I bring this to your attention because select a court case where the use of technology was a driving factor and discuss the impact that case had in reshaping the role of the law enforcement practitioner. Okay? And then the career path. Identify which career path uses technology that would be most interesting to learn and utilize, providing rationale. Now, it may not be the same as your first one. Maybe you look at this and say, well, gosh, this sounds interesting. You're trying to build that knowledge base so that when you do make the decision, the final paper, you can have done it on a good solid background base. Okay, I hope that helps. Let me know what I can do to help you. We can talk on the phone, text, email, Skype. Join me. Keep those cards and letters coming.